weakness. Cigarette, sort of weakness, right? Can be. It doesn't need to be. It can be a weakness. It doesn't need to be any sort of whatever that is. It's just like you've thought. If you can control them, if you know what you're doing, you're not weak. You're just stronger than you were supposed to be. But not by anyone in comparison. Rather by yourself in comparison to what you would have become or could have been. Now, weakness. Non acceptance is weakness. If you don't accept something you don't accept, you're weak. If you try to play around with weakness, you're weak. But if you do that, you're weak. So weakness is of sort. Or can be coincidences though in which you need to be sort of something. This is not something that would ever be a weakness. Meaning, if you want to understand why weakness is, in my mind, as a person of no status, you need to come to understand that the weakness of yours is what makes you. That weakness is some very interesting concept that will make you be everything but yourself. Which is then weakness. Because you fall to the weakness of your soul, or the flesh, or any of your desires, meaning you don't control. If your baddest emotion situation, you don't simply innocence of God around what is love. So, of weakness, I know sexuality or difference, meaning that you understand that there's some stuff, meaning that you less of any sort, which means to eradicate the weakness is to accept, for me to understand. Well, that's real. You need to understand the more. Yeah, for me to understand that, you need to understand the attitude towards it. But the problem is then that at the moment of any sort of towering weakness to circulating what you don't want to become is that you need to re-evaluate yourself. This is a fall. You become something less. In your own degree, at best, then you just have fallen to the attitude of what you might have not been able to be. Everything that would be of any tremendous flow whatsoever being out of you. To prevent. Then you understand why a fall can make you stronger, even if it is almost of ultimate price. But the ultimate price not paid. You didn't fall to the sense of injustice of yourself. You just fall to grace. Correct. Then you're not weak. Then you're stronger. Why? Understanding your weakness. And no one can tell you something about it. Of course, that's the reason. Careful. Secure. And calm. And stronger than anyone else. Could have been that. No. Acceptance is not weakness. To accept that something is, meaning just that death is not weakness. weakness. To accept something of your not doing, if you don't will, that's tremendous weakness and suicide and abomination. Non acceptance, staying, gratitude, that's weakness. Now, to understand that you don't owe anything to anyone, that's just self worth. If you don't have that, you cannot be weak. You cannot be strong. You cannot understand worth if you don't have a worth to yourself. You just understand something that is of matter then. Matter doesn't have value. It only possesses value to dust, which knows self-worth. Even in the future, someone who has no idea of worth doesn't understand the idea of something that brings worth into your life. That person is just spiritually, mentally, philosophically weak. It doesn't understand anything about life. It doesn't understand anything about fall. It doesn't understand anything about how to understand where it can get better and gain by the matter of facts, or matter of stories, or material ideas itself. It's weak. And weak. Or weakness. Meaning, any thought of any encompassing idea to any slight deterioration of where you would have become is a form of ultimate price. And weakness can get eradicated, but it doesn't need to be. It's supposed to be insecure. Otherwise, death is sure. And that's not weakness. That's acceptance. That's strength. That's something else. It's being self-worth. You understand? You accept. You're not weak. Everything else, non-acceptance, unacceptable. Simple truth. Doesn't work otherwise in any idea. Trust. Important to the one you love. Anything else in love, weakness. Disgrading love for something of gain to pleasure, even if would be true, to negate yourself, weakness, because you don't have self-worth to even have love anymore. You would be a different person that you don't want to be. That would need to be freely chosen. Otherwise, you're just not worth anything, and you lost the worth you once possessed by yourself or anything other this being becoming you. You don't even possess a worth to other people anymore because you don't have possession of progress or determination, will by possibility. It doesn't work. It's just weak matter then, weak material. Not even that. It's nothing. It doesn't even possess a different worth to any matter, meaning material ideas. Just possesses nothing. It has now no attribute. Even the attributes of nothing don't accumulate to it. It is simply out of the equation. Look, if the painting is not of its own worth anymore, meaning the artwork has no idea of what it is to be an artwork anymore, it doesn't have any worth, right? If it's not painted this way, it doesn't work. If it would have painted itself, which every art or book story idea does to possible outcomes by every means to nightfall, midnight, then that possesses a worth that makes something else have a different worth, but rather give the same idea. Now, the possibility of something having no determined possible worth, meaning by no existence, means no weakness, no strength, no difference in itself, or only indifference to itself. It has nothing of any possibility anymore, meaning it can change or rearrange anything either. It then didn't change anything by its disappearance either, and that's a difficult one to understand. If something is of disappearance, it doesn't even change the matter, because you never know what the disappearance wouldn't have done, for example, or why the disappearance would have not done something else, or done something, or why the disappearance would never have done something, or why the disappearance would not have caused no to no advantage, meaning the disappearance of something would have caused no difference. That you will know. You will not be able to understand that by the disappearance of something. By the devaluation of something, you will not understand what the weakness was that made it be this way. That means a possibility needs to be freely encompassing towards what it's lit. If it's an idea of matter, meaning a tree, it needs to be growing towards something to understand where the leaf of the next tree will form, to understand where where the matter is supposed to be growing, to not derivate itself to any idea of no possibility, because no possibility changes nothing. It also changes something, though, but not anything. It simply is of no worth, no value, no meaning, and by its disappearance to this idea of worth, the worth itself is irrelevant, and thus has never had any influence, but only the influence of the past, where it was different, which is then negated by its disappearance to have any further encompassing value. Yeah, sure, but also would be leaving an idea of why it would have not maybe changed. Not anything, meaning no appearance to disadvantage or dissemblance or this variation by lightning. That would rather be interesting, but not really. Not if that would not be freely chosen. Because again, by that you understand that you have no worth in your choice. So the idea of worth is then irrelevant to understand that. Because by would not understand, which would not make a difference, the disappearance of something would not be a disappearance whatsoever. It would be nothing without being anything, or nothing whatsoever. It's rational. Meaning, the relevance of something to have freely chosen its possibility to be outweighed to a new outcome, that's a different sort of argument, but would need to be freely chosen. Both arguments in conjunction don't work. So the story of weakness is that you are in non-acceptance to non-acceptance by weakness for the advantage of acceptance. But that doesn't work. Because acceptance then is the day, without any sort of sunlight that even brings about the mid to the dawn of night. By morning. So the example now, not speaking of any degradation of a person in the ultimate idea, let's assume a person understands what knowledge and food is, and it, for example, derives itself to be of no value where the appearance of what it wants to eat next is in its mind. It doesn't control its desires whatsoever. It's weakness to all degrees. And there's not even a possibility for strength anymore. Controlling your desires to all encompassing outcomes, that's good. Letting them flow to all possible outcomes as long as they're not harming someone, that's good. Meaning the person needs to interact with you on that and cannot be degraded. Meaning you cannot harm the person in any sort that is not harm defined by objective morality. That's weakness. Just then in a state of non-acceptance again about objective morality and that you lost. Weakness. It's fairly relevant. At that point, you degrade yourself to such a degree that you don't understand which is your will or your wish or your desire or your destiny any more than any of acceptance would bring you to not be of melodic but not an orchestra tone. Meaning every chord you play, every combination you turn out to bring about your goal will fail you and you just get weaker. So the disappearance of something might prove that, but the proof is of no burden because it doesn't need to happen for you to understand weakness. It's just your own weakness becoming more weak and wanting to give a burden of proof to something that doesn't need to uphold to you whatsoever, or this burden of proof to understand that it doesn't even need to be given at whatsoever. It's just more weakness. Like cigarettes. To smoke a cigarette again and again and expecting a different outcome if you don't like them, that's weakness. Expecting to smoke a cigarette and not getting addicted to any of this sort of bloody boring taste. But not boring in any of what you want to become, but addicted to the feeling of not being addicted to it while you smoke it. Well, weakness. But controlling that, strength. And outside of strength or weakness by possible choice of freedom and advance of freedom and free will. Now take that free will out of the account and led towards the end of goal, or the end of goal, or beginning of weak goal, or weekend, meaning the weakness to become to an end by goal just derives more weakness. Interesting, right? So all possible outcomes out of equation. Matter is nothing but worthless. Life has a self-worth, and negating that makes you nothing else but matter. But only if you don't need to defend yourself. Rather rational, not relevant, but fairly only relevant. Everything else is not of matter, and therefore thus irrelevant. But material ideas cannot be subjugated to anything unless they have a possible determined idea that is laid upon it by its own structure, its own telos. If the telos is inherent to any material idea, then it has a self-worth. Any person giving up freedom of possibility and free will to understand and become a telos is relevant to any sorts of self-worth being. Anything in the future that would persist afterwards would have no idea to how the material ideas would encompass to any self-worth, because knowledge from before would be gone and would not be translatable or transferable or be even, because that would be determined weakness to never. Thus, possible conscious would not evolve on its own, but only be determined by what it previously knows by matter, meaning material ideas, and devalued and the existing consciousness. Thus, less possibility for freer choice and more of no worth. Meaning the worth argument doesn't go. Thank you. No. Not for no. Yeah. You listened. That's nice. Oh. Oh. Okay. Wish you nothing.